Welcome to another episode of the Value Vault. I know it's been a minute since I've done an episode. I think it's around about a week. This is something which I am going to be doing more consistently, especially when it comes to the independent value side of things. So expect more of these episodes really to come along. So the episode that the episode that I'm going to be given today, the really the education that I want to be given, the insights, the value that I want to be given, it's really tailored because I've just came through and just came out of a season in my life where I really felt stuck more than anything else. I really, really felt stuck. And because of that, I really suffered emotionally because of that, with depression, with this constant feeling of up and down spikes of anxiety, and overall just not really in a good place. I felt shame, felt like I was letting myself down, and I wasn't in a good spot. I wasn't in a good spot. And where I'm at now in my life, the person that I am, the mindset that I'm now operating, the way that I now feel, the action that I'm now taking, it's the complete polarity. And anything with me, everything that I go through, anytime life happens, which it will, that's life. It's a prerequisite for drawing breath. Things will happen. Every time they happen, as I'm going through it, it's obviously hard. And even though I know what I know with the mind, it is still hard. I still get emotionally impacted. But because I'm becoming so more aware now of my mind and my emotions and fears and goals and just a better understanding of who I am to apply all the knowledge that I have, the time frame that I'm suffering, the time frame that I'm in that hard sort of segment of whatever we want to call this thing that we're a part of, it just becomes less and less. And I really do get curious because, I'm on my own journey of going after my goals, going after the life that I want to create, to become the best version of myself, to really live my purpose of mentoring and giving value and helping people unlock their minds and really become the best version of themselves as well, giving them the information that could help you guide yourself through that journey. So that's why I really get inquisitive when certain things happen, because there's a lot of lessons that I learn. And some of the lessons which I want to touch on today, it actually really comes from reading a book called The Courage of Being Disliked. The Courage of Being Disliked. And it's such a phenomenal book. I've just been reading it today. I bought it yesterday when I was coming back from the Lake District after climbing Blencathra, one of the peaks down there. Ended up stopping off at a service station, went to a WH Smith and picked up that book. And I've just spent some of today after my mentorship call reading it, and it really is a phenomenal book. The Courage of Being Disliked. Highly recommend you get that. But there's a lot of things that I'm reading within that book now, and it just makes sense. And a lot of what I'm reading is actually proving the philosophy that I also have from the studying that I've done of the mind and continue to take of the mind and of human anatomy, of the brain, of our nervous system, how we work, how we operate, how certain things function and why we do what we do, all of these types of things. There's a lot of confirmation that I'm getting from this book. And, with me and my journey, I think especially when it comes to the foundation of my journey, helping my mum with her mental health problems, she really, really struggled. And when I got introduced to Bob Proctor, he was the first man who I got introduced to, I really became obsessed in studying his material. And for those of you who don't know my story, really, when I started studying that type of information, that type of material, and I was getting a better understanding of how we work, how we operate, and why we do what we do, and how we can ultimately change that and work with that information. I was just having these fascinating conversations with my mum, and she was taking it all on board, and we would have these incredible conversations, which we still have now. And she is my favorite person to sit down with and have a conversation with, because I absolutely love how much she gets consumed by it. And more than anything else, I really just love the impact and transformation that it's had on her. She went from somebody who for 2 years, she wasn't really leaving the house. She wasn't going to work. She was on sick. She couldn't really speak to anybody on the phone. And Mum, I know you listen, and I know you'll be listening to this. And to go from somebody essentially who was sort of like a shell of a human because of, you know, her journey and things that she's been through and all of these types of contributing things, to then go to somebody who's a normal person. I wouldn't even say normal, actually, because the way she is isn't actually normal. She's got awareness. She's abnormal. But to go from somebody who couldn't leave the house to then being somebody who's maid of honor and dancing on a dance floor and going out and actually having a life, to see that radical transformation, it's incredible. And obviously I've had it with my own journey as well, to go from the person who I was, who was just going through life unconscious, didn't really know why I was waking up in a morning and going to my job and doing what I was going to do, and I was living for the weekends, just taking drugs, getting drunk and buying all the materialistic stuff, getting in this debt to get the car, and then wanting to just go along with the status quo without ever really taking a moment to think, well, is this what I even want? And the reality is it wasn't. But I didn't really know what it is that I did want. But the moment that I started to understand the mind, how we work, how we operate, how thoughts become things, why we do what we do, and how we're going to work with that information, that's really when things started to change for me. But more so in particular, you know, the journey that I've just been through, the season that I've just been through, the hardship, there really is a lot of lessons that I've learned from this. And that is really going to be explained and shared throughout the whole Value Vault podcast, as it always will be as well. But something which I want to touch on today, with really just extracting the information from what I'm reading so far from the book, The Courage to Being Disliked, it's in particular relation to emotions and what an emotion actually is, the control we have over an emotion, and misconceptions about how certain events will control our emotions, which ultimately, for those of you who've heard me talk about my mind, about the mind, it goes the conscious mind, subconscious mind, whatever's in the subconscious manifests through the body as an action, and it's the actions that you take which ultimately create the results that you have. A key thing to understand within that is our emotions majorly influence our behavior. But this is the key thing to really understand, and it comes from the concept psycho-cybernetics. And that was a book created by Dr. Maxwell Maltz. And essentially the whole premise of that book, Psycho-Cybernetics, is to help you understand that you are a goal-striving mechanism. You have a goal-striving mechanism inside of you, and it's the brain and it's the nervous system. Those two things act in unison as a servo mechanism, which is either going to be used as a success servo mechanism or a failure servo mechanism. For ease of understanding, it's either going to be something which helps you get what you want or helps you experience things that you don't really like, but you are still getting what you want because that's the goal that you're focusing on, right? It's impersonal, it's immoral. Whatever goal you give it, it is then going to do everything necessary for you to do certain things which create more results and give you more objective experience to help you really reaffirm the goal that you've had in the first place. The reason why that's important is because for most of us, we've been conditioned to have negative goals. Goals which don't really serve us. Goals which aren't allowing us to experience freedom, to experience fulfillment, purpose, joy, love, connection, confidence, progress, growth, evolution. All of these types of things. For the most part, we've been conditioned in fear, and we'll have fear-based goals. Now, the reason why that's really important is because when we understand the mechanism, when we understand how it actually influences our behavior, and essentially how it sets the thermostat on the life that we're living, this is really what I want to try and help you understand a little bit more in depth so that you can just go through your life and understand more clearly about why you have the results that you have, why you are living the life that you are living, why you are the person that you are, but then fundamentally how you can change that, how you can take control, how you can make the progress to becoming the person who you want to be, to get the results that you want to get, and really just start living a more intentional, purpose-driven life. So Psycho-Cybernetics, Maxwell Maltz, he was the plastic surgeon, okay? And at this time when he was doing all the plastic surgery, he was working with a lot of patients who, you know, they would have facial disfigurements, specifically facial disfigurements. You know, they would have scars or moles or just, impairments on the skin, disfigurements on the skin. And people would go to him and essentially to get them removed. And, there'd be people who would go there. He would completely alter the face. He would remove the disfigurement, the defect, the scar. But for some people, the belief that they have about themselves would be altered. They'd go to him because they don't feel confident. They feel like they're ugly. He would remove the scar and suddenly they feel beautiful again because he's altered the physical image. But for some other people, they would still hold that same belief about themselves. And this is what was really starting to spark his curiosity, because amongst the confusion that would be caused by that and by some of the family members of the patient who would be in the practice, to their amazement, they'd be like, oh my God, you're beautiful. But the patient would still have that same fundamental belief that, well, no, I'm ugly. Yes, I know you've removed the scar, but I'm still ugly. And that's really what set him on the journey of becoming curious and becoming understand why that is the case. And that's when he really understood that, yes, we've got a physical image of self, but we must also have a subjective, internal image of self, a mental image of ourself, the spiritual side of what we are. So when he was doing all this type of study, and the first thing he came across to understanding was cybernetics. Now, cybernetics is something which has control over electronic or living things. Meaning, a room thermostat, as an example, has a cybernetic mechanism inside of it. The way that the cybernetic mechanism works is if you give it a goal and you give it an objective, it will work automatically to achieve that goal. The way that it works within a thermostat, let's use as an example, if you give your thermostat the goal of, I want you to attain 22 degrees Celsius inside of this house. You set the thermostat, you go about your business, you do whatever you're doing around the house. But let's say you're from the UK where it's always cold outside, the window's being left open, some cold air gets in, right? So just as you're going about your business, the temperature in the house drops. You don't then just run back to the thermostat every time the temperature drops and readjust it. You just continue going about your business. Why? How even? Because the thermostat, the cybernetic system, it senses, whoa, we're off course here. Because you're telling me the goal and objective is 22 degrees, but now I'm sensing and registering that the temperature is actually 17 degrees. So without you needing to do anything, you just continue doing what you were doing. The cybernetic system sends the messages to the boiler for the boiler to fire up, for the radiators to get warm, the house gets warmer, the temperature climbs, it reaches 22 degrees, the mechanism inside of the stat senses, great, we're back on course, and it shuts off the boiler. And we're back on course of maintaining the goal. It will work to give you the objective experience, the physical experience of the goal that you give it, which is 22 degrees. So that's how it works within a thermostat. Okay, and there's many other things that it works in. It's how autopilot plays. It's how autopilot works in a plane. Pilots are in LA, they want to go to Paris. They input the coordinates of Paris into the mechanism. When they get up and in the air, they kick back. They go in cruise control. The cybernetic system is now in full control of that plane because it knows where it's going. It knows the objective. If turbulence hits and temporarily knocks it off course, even by a fraction of a degree, if it goes a certain distance off course, the sensor senses that it's off course, that it's deviated. It then sends a signal to the throttle, to the engine, to the flaps, to everything that's needed to readjust itself to bring it back on course so that it can get itself to Paris. That's without the pilots needing to do anything. All right. So that's how his cybernetic system works. You give it a goal and objective, it will work within the machine that it's in, whether it's electronic or living, and it will work to give you the goal, to give you the experience of the goal. It will do whatever it needs to do to course correct, to readjust in order to get you there. Now, the whole concept of psycho-cybernetics that Maxwell Maltz created was understanding that if psycho is Greek psyche for the mind, and cybernetics is Greek for the steersman, put those two words together, the mind is the steersman. That's what it means in Greek or Latin, whatever it derives from. Now, what he come to understand is that whatever the image is that you are holding of yourself, you will be controlled automatically and unconsciously by that image, so that you do certain things, you will act a certain way, you will be a certain way that actually creates the results that you are getting. And the results that you are getting is always going to be in harmony with the image that you are holding of yourself. Why? Because that's the goal. The image that you have about yourself, which is literally just a compound and a collective of the thoughts and the feelings and the beliefs that you have about yourself, that there is what conditions and molds and shapes and sculpts your self-image. Whether it's positive or negative, constructive or destructive. Whatever goal you give your mechanism, which is the brain and the nervous system, it's a servo mechanism, whatever you give it, the brain then sends a signal for the nervous system, which the nervous system is responsible for all of the movements within your body, but your brain is what sends the signal to your body to do certain movements so that you can experience and achieve the goal that you are giving it. So that can look as simple of, if you want to go and make a cup of coffee, before you get up and make the cup of coffee, you've got to have it as a thought, and you've got to pass it to your servo mechanism as a goal, which is, I want to have a cup of coffee and I want to drink that cup of coffee. So what do? You have the goal in your mind. What then happens? Well, the brain then registers the goal. Great, cup of coffee, we want to drink coffee. So what does it do? It sends the signal to your nervous system, which was responsible for your movements, and you will get up off the couch into the kitchen, you will grab the cup out of the cupboard, you will click the kettle on, you will pour your cup of coffee, and you will sit back down and drink the cup of coffee. We do that without even thinking about how that happens. And this is where I really get curious, like, how the hell have you just done that? How does that happen? What's within me that's actually just allowed me to achieve this goal? And that's literally it. It's psycho-cybernetics. You give yourself a goal, you will then work automatically and unconsciously to achieve it. It might take longer than others. You might have some roadblocks in the way, but eventually, if you persist with the goal, you will eventually achieve it. Why? Because like Napoleon Hill said, whatever the mind can conceive and bring itself to believe, it can and will achieve. That's Napoleon Hill. One of the greatest people of all time, in my opinion, who studied the most successful people throughout the whole of the 1900s. Phenomenal person. He wrote the book Think and Grow Rich and Outwitting the Devil, amongst other things. Incredible bloke. But why is this important then? And how does this relate to the book, The Courage to Be Disliked? Well, it comes from a couple of things, and I've just done a live on Instagram at the time of recording this, and it was really touching on this. And it's a really important thing for us to really understand, because if the results that we have in our life, with where I was down in the dumps, depressed, shameful, really wasn't my best friend, wanted to punch my head in, to go from that, confused, lacking clarity, lacking direction, not turning up for myself, to now somebody who has purpose, who has clarity, who has a vision, who's turning up for himself, who feels excited about his life, who's taking action on the things that he wants to be, do, and have, and is excelling in those areas, and feels purposeful, and literally creating a life that I love. The thing that changed within that, one of the main things that changed, is the goal that I was giving myself. And that's how you're going to change as well. And that's how you're going to achieve what it is that you want to achieve. Because if we become what we think about, which we do, in any amount of studying of As a Man Thinketh by James Allen, or Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, or Psycho-Cybernetics, Dr. Maxwell Maltz, if you read anybody who's really dedicated their life to this information, you'll understand you become what you think about. So what are you thinking about? What's the goal that you have? Because whatever the goal is that you have in your mind, whether it's constructive or destructive, good or bad, you are going to create the emotion that you need to feel that will influence the actions that you need to take so that you can experience more of what that goal was. And this is the biggest thing to understand. Your past is not the thing that controls that. It isn't. Absolutely is not. And this is where the Courage to Be Disliked really supports that viewpoint that I have, that I've had, that helped me, help my mum overcome herself and overcome her trauma, severe PTSD, depression, social anxiety. It's that your past is not the thing that's responsible for who you are. Your past is not the thing that's responsible for doing the things that you do, for feeling the way that you feel, for having the life that you have. It's not. It's the meaning that you are giving the past. That's what's responsible. Because whatever happens, it isn't good or bad. It's a blank canvas. You are the thing what gives it meaning. And that meaning can either be positive or negative, constructive or destructive. If you are associating a destructive, negative meaning to something that's happened in your past, that then is going to show up in your life and in your results and in your emotions. But it isn't the past event. It isn't the people. It isn't the environment. It's nothing externally to you that's created that. It's the meaning that you are giving it. The meaning that you are attaching to it isn't serving you. It isn't constructive. It isn't positive. And because of that, it appears that it's controlling you, and it appears that it's the thing responsible for you being the way that you are and for you having the results that you have. But just think about that for a minute. If the past's in the past and you can't change it, and if everything that's outside of you is outside of your control, but suddenly now the past events which have been outside of your control, that's now in control of you. So not only do you have something that you can't change, you've also got something that you can't control now in control of you. How's that working out? So this is really the key to transforming, because you can't change what's happened. The only thing that you can change is the meaning that you are giving it. And it doesn't matter whether the meaning's true. You might be 100% correct with what the meaning is that you're giving it. You might be true. But my question is it serving you? Is it any good? And if that's the thing that's holding you back in your life, I'm going to be the person to tell you it isn't any good. So if you can't change what's happened, you've got to change the meaning of it. To help prove this point, because it is quite a big, bold statement to make that trauma isn't really a thing. It is a big statement, trust me. But an example to really try and validate and prove that point a bit is two people can have the same thing happen to them, but derive two completely different meanings to it. And as a result of that, will be completely impacted by that differently. I'm going to give two examples on this. Two examples. I'm actually going to give three. And one of them's a personal one. The first one is two men can get attacked by a knife and have their face completely ripped open and require stitches and surgery to correct it. Person A has the surgery, both of which have an incredible scar on the face. Person A has his self-esteem absolutely destroyed. lost all confidence. He's got a rip in his face. Can't really leave the house. Covers his face when he goes out. Doesn't really attend any social events anymore. Doesn't really show his face. And he's a recluse in his house. Absolutely destroyed. Person B has the same scar, went through the same procedure, had the same injury. But he is absolutely radiating confidence. And to him, that's actually it's almost like a medal of honor. He wears it like a medal of honor, at least, amongst these people. So whenever he's out in crowds, he's showing it off. He's walking out with his chest out. He's proudly showing off the scar. These are both two people who's had the exact same situation happen. One of them's destroyed. One of them's uplifted. Why? Well, that clearly proves that it isn't the event that's responsible. It isn't the event. It's the meaning you are giving the event. More than that, even more in depth than that, if you want to go more in depth, it's the goal that you have inside of your mind that is determining that factor. It's the purpose that you have. Person A has a goal. Person B has a goal. They will create the feeling that allows them to be a certain way that creates more of the goal. And in doing so, they change the meaning that they give events. They give meaning to events differently. Why? Because the goal that they have is different. Person B wants to be an outgoing, confident, well-respected person. Person A, they might have some deep insecurities before the event. And because of which, the goal that they have in their mind is to avoid social situations, to avoid interactions with people out of fear of being judged, out of fear of whatever. And so the meaning that they give the event that's happened to them is negative, because that allows them to create the feeling that they need to feel in order to be a certain way, to experience more of the goal, which is to avoid social contact. So congratulations, person here, you've achieved your goal, because your goal is to avoid social situations. So because of which, you are creating this feeling of insecurity within you. However, society get that twisted, and they blame an experience behind it. Oh, well, it's because of he got stabbed. He got slashed with a knife. Really? That's the cause of it? Because so did person B, but yet he's out gallivanting around the streets, proudly showing it off. So is it the experience? Is that what it is? So why is person B not locked up in his bedroom? Because they both got slashed with a knife. So it isn't the event. It's the meaning that you were given the event, which is done through the goal that you were operating with inside of your subconscious mind. That is the self-image. That's the goal. And whatever the goal is, you were going to create the feeling needed to become and do the things so that you can actually experience the goal. And you will do that. And every time you don't do that, every time you do something different, outside of the conditioning, outside of the image, outside of the goal, all that's just a temporary deviation. That's just the thermostat going from 22 degrees down to 21, 20, 19, 18, 17. That's all that is. That could represent positive progress in your life. But regardless of the fact, the servo mechanism, the subconscious mind, it's impersonal, it's immoral, it doesn't know the difference between good or bad. All it senses is that, whoa, we are deviated. Why? Because you haven't updated the goal. You aren't thinking about who it is that you actually want to be and how it is that you actually want to live. You haven't taken the time to get clarity as to what you want key areas in your life to look like, in your finances, in your health, in your fitness, in your relationships, in your professional life. You haven't taken time to set those goals. So whatever the goals that you've got, which has been preset, you're going to do everything needed to achieve them. Everything you do outside of that without updating the goal is just a deviation. And you will self-sabotage, because that's what self-sabotage is. That's course correction. Self-sabotage is course correction. However, when you get clarity of the new goal, when you get clarity of the new person that you were becoming, and you get emotionally involved in that, you actually sit and fantasize and dream and entertain that idea. And you become obsessed in becoming that person. And then you take the aligned action that that version of you would be taking in order to get the results that you want to get. Every time you're met with the resistance and the urge to retreat back to the old ways, that's when you remind yourself of the new goal. That's when you remind yourself of the new identity. That's when you remind yourself of the person who you're actually becoming. And that is how we change. Not just change, that's how we make permanent change. Not just a deviation, not just a temporary change, permanent change. That's it. And this is how it works. This is how it operates. When you change the goal that you are operating with, that's when you'll change. The moment things start to change for me is the moment that I actually start to change my goal. I stop focusing on why I can't be a full-time mentor, why I can't help people tap into their true potential. I stop focusing on that. And the moment that I stop focusing on that, and the moment that I start to entertain the idea of being that person, and start focusing on why I'm actually worthy of doing it, and how I can do it, and why I want to do it, I start to change. And I had to, because the goal that I was giving my servo mechanism was different, and it will act on it. So you are where you are who you are, not because of what's happened, not because of other people, but because of the goal that you've been given. And if that isn't to your liking, change the goal. Get clear on who it is that you want to be, where it is that you want to be, the life that you want to live, the impact you want to have, the lifestyle you want to be able to be experiencing on a day-by-day basis. Get clarity on those things. Dream, imagine, visualize, fantasize, but most importantly, execute. And obviously there's going to be other things that come up on the journey of going from where you are to where it is that you want to be. Yes, but this is the fundamental place to start that journey. And I promise if you implement these certain things, things will change. And hopefully this has been information which just turns on that light more for you, so that when you are on that journey, it just makes more sense. You're aware of what's happening. You're aware of why you are, where you are, why you are, who you are. And more importantly, how you can change that, which is the most important step. So you don't need to try and get to the root cause of, well, what event happened in the past that caused this? Because it wasn't the event that caused it. It's the meaning that you are giving things. It's the goal that you have. Change the goal. Things will change. Because regardless of whether you know the exact moment this belief formed, the exact experience that happened, it still doesn't change the fact that it's within you. You've still got to do something about it. But truth be told, it was never the event. It was never the event. Because two people can go through the same experience and take away two completely different meanings to it. Because there was a story about the two brothers who had a raging alcoholic father who was abusive. One of them ended up growing up to be a raging alcoholic father who was abusive to his kids. The other one became a highly successful entrepreneur who had a great family, great health, financially free, and lived a purpose-driven life, full of fulfillment. They were both asked, how are you the way that you are? Why are you the way that you are? The replies from both of the sons, because I had a raging alcoholic abusive father. So it isn't the event. It's the meaning that you give the event, which is ultimately dictated by the goal that you were operating with. So if you change your goal, you change your life, I promise. So hopefully you've gotten value from this. If you do, if you had, please share it. If you know that there's somebody who needs to hear this information, share it with them. Share it with them, because this is really the type of information which changes lives, because it's changed mine, it's changed my mother's, and so many other people who I'm working with on a day-by-day basis. So, yeah, big love. I'll see you on the next episode. God bless. Peace out.